Bungie has been cooking when it comes to Prismatic and the final shape. We've already covered what's probably the best build in the game with Prismatic Hunter, so today I wanted to continue this by covering Prismatic Titan and the build that keeps us nearly constantly transcendent. With Titan's Transcendence being the strongest of the three, we're going to focus on keeping this active with almost every choice we make, from abilities to our exotics. If you're liking the videos on the channel and want to see more, liking and subscribing will let me know to keep doing what I'm doing. But without further ado, I'm iYogert, and let's get started. Like our last Prismatic build, let's find a good base kit to start with and go from there. For that, the new Void Super Twilight Arsenal is both a lot of fun and really good, so we'll take that first. Then let's grab Frenzied Blade from the Strand kit. While a strong ability on its own, the main reason we're going to be taking it is the fact that it has 3 charges, and we're going to take full advantage of that when we get to our aspects. Before that though, let's grab one of the 3 options we have for grenades. First up, we have Pulse Grenade, which is our classic deal lots of damage grenade, and I recommend this one in lower end content like normal raids or patrols. Then we have our 2 utility options in Suppressor and Shackle Grenades. Both offer powerful CC, which will be more useful the harder the content we're in. Then the determining factor between the two will be which way we want to build into it. Shackle Grenades offer us another source of darkness damage, which will greatly help with Transcendence cooldown and stuns unstopped champions. And then Suppressor Grenades can be made to apply weaken debuff in a large AoE, and is also effective against overload champs. The TLDR on the grenades is run Pulse Grenade for more arc AoE, then pick either Shackle or Suppressor Grenade in harder content based on your team's needs and the type of champions you'll be facing. That brings us to our aspects and fragments. And you already know we're going to be taking Consecration. This aspect had a real glow up in Season of the Wish once the Bonk Hammer received its nerf, and now it's the go-to on Prismatic Titan too. This is because it's both very good at dealing with groups of smaller adds and chunking beefier target. Unlike Solar, we have 3 charges of it on Prismatic, meaning that we can chain them back to back to back if we need to. This will be the cornerstone of our build when we're not in Transcendence, so let's make sure it's as strong as we can make it. For that, let's take Dranger's Lash, which may seem odd at first. I just said it's going to make our Consecration better, but how? That's because we're going to pair it with Facet of Courage. This will make our light abilities deal more damage to targets affected by darkness debuffs. In our case, that means Consecration will deal 10% more damage to things that we suspend, either with Shackle Grenade if we chose to take that, or our Dranger's Lash. I mentioned it earlier that we'll be needing all the Darkness Transcendence energy that we can get, and to help with this, our next fragment is Facet of Sacrifice. This makes our abilities grant us extra darkness energy whenever we have a light buff. We will have many ways of getting light buffs with this build, whether it's amplified on arc kills with our Pulse Grenade, Radiant from the artifact, or Void Overshield from Facet of Purpose. Facet of Purpose makes it where picking up an orb grants an elemental buff based on your super. And since we're running Twilight Arsenal, we're going to be getting Void Overshield every time we get an orb. While we have a Void Overshield, we get some damage resistance. And let's continue that by acquiring Facet of Protection. This one needs little explanation, as we'll be getting the damage resistance from this fragment all the time when we're in our enemies' faces, right before we obliterate them with our Fiery Slam. That leaves us with 2 fragment slots, but 3 really good options. Listing them off, they're Facet of Grace, Facet of Hope, and Facet of Dominant. Each of these are very strong, and you can make an argument for all 3, but Facet of Grace will give us insane Transcendence uptime if you have a kinetic primary, pairing especially well with the new exotic Kvostov. Then Facet of Hope gives us more class ability energy for more suspense with Dranger's Lash. And lastly, Facet of Dominance will give our Pulse or Suppressor Grenades added effects with Jolt and Weaken respectively. My recommendation for these 3 is take Facet of Grace and Dominance if your build can take advantage of it. That meaning running a kinetic primary or a grenade that gets an added effect. Then we can use Facet of Hope as our plan B to come in off the bench if our build doesn't use the other 2. Next, let's touch on the artifact real quick before we dive into the exotics we're going to use with this build. The first 3 columns are pretty bland, so let's just jump to the 4th with Void Hegemony. This is another way to get a Void Overshield, and will stack with Facet of Purpose to make sure we have a Void Overshield at all times. Then Radiant Orbs is a must this act. With how powerful Radiant is and how easy it is to make orbs, there's just no better option. Wrapping up this column, we have Galvanizing Armor, and this is another source of DR when we're amplified. We can get amplified with this build by either getting kills with our Pulse Grenade or from a few of our exotic options. Then we have the final column with Expanding Abyss and Shield Crush. Expanding Abyss is great because our first axe and Twilight Arsenal will apply Weaken, and with Expanding Abyss equipped, we'll do 10% more damage per axe and 25% more from any other void source we do. Shield Crush will then give us 25% additional melee energy and damage when we have our Void Overshield, and a matching 25% additional grenade energy and damage when we have Radiant or Amplified. Argent Blade and Transfer Arts are also in this column, but we'd have to trade off the two more powerful options to get them. I only recommend swapping off Expanding Abyss and 2 Argent Blade if you're using swords in a boss DPS phase. Moving to exotics, where we have a ton of options, especially with the new class items. For starters, we have our normal exotics. I would run either Syntheseps for more powerful Frenzy Blade, Consecrations, and Supers, or Abeyant Leaps for improved Dranger's Lash and Woven Mail on Suspend. But while those are strong on their own, you can get both of those exotics plus more when you are on the exotic class item, so let's dive right into the combinations I'd look for on that. In the first column, we can look at Spirit of Inmost Light, Spirit of Severance, and Spirit of the Abeyant. Severance and Abeyant are fun choices, but Severant normally just blows up things that are already getting blown up by your Consecration, and Spirit of the Abeyant loses the Woven Mail on Suspend, so it's far less desirable. That leaves only Spirit of Inmost Light, and this is, again, not the full perk we get from Heart of Inmost Light. The Spirit of Inmost Light, we can only get 1 stack of empowered abilities, when normally we can get 2x for each of our abilities. And while this sucks we can't get the full effect, it's still a really powerful pick, and will be my choice in the first column. Second column. Oh boy, second column is stacked. Spirit of Star Eaters, Spirit of Syntheseps, Spirit of Verity, Spirit of Contact, Spirit of Scars, and even Spirit of Armamentarium are all very strong options. But let's filter through some of this for only the best options. Spirit of Star Eater will make our super do a ton of damage for stuff like boss damage phases. Then Spirit of Syntheseps loses the damage that we get to our super, but maintains the most important part of buffing our melee. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the Syntheseps and Frenzy Blade combo from Strand Titan, or the Consecration Synthesept combo from Solar. Then my sort of sleeper pick is Spirit of Scars. Precious Scars gained a bit of traction last season and in Onslaught, but I still haven't seen a lot of people using it. Spirit of Scars drops the restoration we receive on revives, and keeps the healing and restoration we get on kill that matches our super energy. All of that said, my ideal role for the class item on this build is going to be Spirit of Inmost Light paired with Spirit of Syntheseps. And yeah, this is kind of a boring pick, but it's definitely the meta. I personally have Spirit of Inmost and Spirit of Contact on my class item, and this combo feels amazing. So I'm definitely going to keep grinding for the God role and some of the other roles that look like fun. If I find a duo that performs better than I expected, I'll be sure to put it in the pinned comment, where you can also find the dim link to this build. I've tried a ton of different variants of this build. In fact, you've been watching a version of it with Knockout instead of Dranger's Lash in the background, and they're all very strong. But I feel like this combination of abilities, fragments, and aspects that I've suggested is the best baseline for the build, allowing for fun and effective dispatching of enemies in lower content, while also giving you some tools to help survive in harder content. If you have any suggestions that you want to make for this build, or want to help craft the ultimate Prismatic Warlock, then you can leave a comment down below or come by my stream. I'll be live if you're watching this video on its release, as well as every Tuesday and Friday over at twitch.tv/iYogert. I hope to see y'all over there, and if not, I'll see y'all about the tower.